So what do you think about this Luigi guy? Because unsurprisingly, he's making me think about One Piece. And about how when authorities clamp down on like figures of a rebellion, something weird happens. Instead of just crushing the dissent, they sometimes turn this one-off person into like an unstoppable symbol. Type of legend. Like it's almost like the response hands their enemy a golden spotlight. But of course, that's not what they mean to do. And it usually just starts with a single moment. A public trial, an execution, an assassination, and all of a sudden you've got an entire population of people rallying behind someone that they'd never heard of before. Like that's what happened with Luigi. He allegedly killed the United Healthcare executive. And like, I gotta say that, allegedly. Innocent until proven guilty, folks. But like, sure, if you're in the executive suite, Luigi's probably terrified. But for everybody else, for the common people, the shot heard around the country opened a deep, uncomfortable truth that the system, this industry around healthcare, was feeding off someone in such a predatory way that someone felt like they didn't have a choice but to strike back. And when Luigi was perp walked by Eric Adams, I couldn't help but think about Gol D Roger, you know, the Pirate King himself. Because even though Luigi didn't give himself up to the authorities like Roger gave himself up to the Marines, there's an undeniable parallel between what's happened with these two. Like with Roger, when he turned himself in, you'd think this is the perfect moment for the government to completely shut down his era of piracy. But nope. Instead, Roger's final words set the world on fire, and he inspired a generation of dreamers, rebels, and pirates. But why does this happen? Why do these crackdowns against rebellious figures backfire? And why do authorities continue to treat them in the same way? Well, I don't know. I just like anime. I'm not smart. So I turned to an author I always loved to read who I thought knew a little bit more about this, Angela Davis. She's an acclaimed academic, activist, and author who's spent a lot of her life analyzing oppressive systems and writing about them, and specifically has some interesting insight about how these oppressive systems expose their own weaknesses when they overreact. Like, think about trying to hold water in your hand. If you tried to squeeze it, the tighter you gripped, the quicker it falls out. And all of this stuff about Luigi and the healthcare system and the reaction from the city of New York made me think about how, like, this same thing happened in One Piece. Because sometimes it really is the smallest spark that ignites something massive. And Angela Davis always pointed out that people don't really rally behind an act of defiance because they love violence or love chaos. People rally because they see themselves in the act or the symbol. It's not just about supporting that one single action. It's about the recognition of a shared frustration, a yearning for something better. And that's why people have taken to Luigi. It's not just that he fired a bullet, but that he pulled back the curtain and stood up against a rigged game. Because in the United States, we're part of a system that is driven and smothered with greed and profit margins as the main incentive within the healthcare industry. So when he allegedly targeted this executive, there was like a sense of disbelief. People couldn't look away from it. But what made it mandatory viewing more than anything, what's the most interesting part of it, is how the system reacted. And it reacted hard. The propaganda machine really kicked in, parading Luigi across headlines and ultimately branding him as a terrorist. Like the clip, the images of him being perp walked by 50 of New York City's finest and Eric Adams, I mean, it's iconic. And it might have felt like a power play for the authorities, but we could all see that it reeked of insecurity. And the whole mobilization to find him and the response after his arrest stands in juxtaposition in the world of injustice that we actually live in. Why does the murder of a CEO garner this response when the average assault in New York City won't get touched by the police? And when in the same year we read about people getting executed by the police for not paying their subway fare. And it's especially rich when a few weeks later, we watch as cops just walk right on by as a woman burns alive on the New York City subway. And because of all of this, Luigi's face started showing up at raves and on murals, and he even made his way into the Weekend Update at SNL. And again, I want to be clear, I don't think this is because people saw it and thought, like, yeah, assassinations are sick. Political violence, so cool. We love that. That's what we want more of. It's because the overreaction from the system confirms the fear that everybody already has. That the people in power are willing to do absolutely anything to maintain their position. And so Luigi became a symbol for a lot of the frustrations that have been unspoken. And the entire response to his initial act of violence really laid bare the hypocrisy of the institutions that are supposed to serve and protect. Like that maybe they don't serve and protect us. Maybe they just protect capital and serve those who have it. Okay. Enough about Luigi, enough about assassinating healthcare CEOs. What does this have to do with One Piece? Well, when Roger turned himself in, the world government thought they had a golden PR moment. A public execution that was meant to remind everyone who's in charge. But seemingly intentionally, Roger had other plans. In his last moments, he took the opportunity to talk about the greatest treasure the world has ever seen, the One Piece. And he flipped the script to use that moment to ignite something across the world. Instead of fear, Roger sparked ambition. And instead of control, the world government created chaos. The great pirate era was born. But what really matters isn't the treasure or the fights or the great pirate adventures. It's how the world responded. Because obviously the real world and literature are different. Roger seized upon a moment of opportunity that was created by the world government. Whether any of this response to the assassination and what will follow from it was part of Luigi's intent, we may never know. But in One Piece, Roger didn't just die as a man, he became an idea. Pirates were setting sail not just for gold, but for freedom, for the chance to live without chains, to take up the destiny or the will of Roger. The government gave him a platform so that his words could spread throughout generations. And I think that's something that's an incredible part of the One Piece story, the One Piece world. Luffy is obviously embodying the will of Gol D Roger, but the way that he died and his final words spread his will throughout the entire generation across the world. And real quick, gotta give a shout out to the most important character in One Piece that we never really talk about. I'm talking about the guy in the crowd at Roger's execution. You know, the one who asked about his treasure. Roll the clip.
Hey! Pirate King! Tell us where in the hell you've hidden all of your treasure! Is it in the Grand Line or someplace else? You found it, didn't you? The legendary treasure! The One Piece!
You want my treasure?
Just shut your mouth!
You can have it! I left everything I gathered in one place. Now you just have to find it!
Like, do you think if that guy didn't ask about this treasure that Roger was gonna say anything? And living in the real world, comparing it to other historical figures, comparing it to Luigi, it's an interesting parallel. Because like the woman who said delay, deny, defend on the, I think it was like on the phone call with her insurer, who's now going to jail for decades, which is insane and absurd, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. Luigi's act has inspired a response in the face of a system we've known is messed up for decades. And the crackdown from the authorities really just confirms everybody's fears. And in both cases, the overreaction is what becomes the story. Because in One Piece, the world government's like iron grip over the world cracked under the weight of Roger's words. He wasn't like just the pirate king, he exposed the cracks in the system itself and the lives that people were leading. And the kicker is that neither Roger nor Luigi are going to be like perfect figures. They're not perfect people. That's not what it's about. Luigi is allegedly a killer, and I'm sure as we learn more about his background and the state that he was in when he committed that act, the questions will come up. And Roger was not only a pirate, but you look at the God Valley incident, and it's like, what's your motivation? What are your morals, really? I'm not going to get into that. But the point is that people don't rally around these types of figures because they're saints. People rally around people like this because they represent something. And that's what's important, what they represent. Like Roger's final words weren't just about treasure. They were about possibility. And for many, they inspired a world not shackled by fear. And in a large way, both of these men became powerful symbols, not just because of what they did or what they believed, but because of the way that the government reacted to them. The harder the government squeezes, the more these symbols slip right out of their hands. And here's the thing about oppressive systems. They thrive on fear. They bank on people thinking like, better keep my head down, better not get in any trouble. But the thing about that mindset and the thing about people is that at some point, the more that you push on it, something flips. Fear turns into anger, anger turns into action. And Luigi was paraded in those handcuffs, and Eric Adams was making all those statements about how he wanted to look him in the face. It wasn't just about him or the guy he killed anymore. It became about quelling the fear of other executives and elites who worried they might be the next headline. And that's why we talk about people like this even long after their stories have been played out. Like, think about how many historical revolutionary figures we still know to this day. Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Rosa Luxemburg. We remember them because their acts became symbols, and symbols outlast people. And it was going back and reading Angela Davis that really reminded me. Stories of resistance live longer than the people who lived them. They spread and adapt and inspire entirely new generations. Luigi's face at a rave might not just be about one bullet. It may end up being about the fragility of the system he exposed. In the same way that Roger's final words aren't going to be about some massive treasure that Luffy gets. It's gonna be about freedom. As these individuals fade away, the stories will remain. And that's the thing about oppression. It has this weird side effect. It ends up building the same symbols that really it ultimately hopes to destroy. Luigi fired one bullet, and the government's reaction may turn him into a name that people rally behind. Roger gave himself up, and the world government accidentally created an entire generation of pirates. And Angela Davis was absolutely right. Like, the tighter you squeeze, the more that your control slips out of your hands. Because rebellion doesn't grow from just one act. It grows from the way that systems react to that act. How they reveal their fragility in the face of even the smallest defiance. And once people latch onto that story, it's like Skypiea, baby. It's almost impossible to unring that bell.